about this, really the most effective methods we have for improving behavior. Probably just keep moving the thing down here. So is really using positive effective behavior support and how to make your life easier. So those are the three things we're going to. The third one is the power of teaching expectations, being positive, and then reinforcing the expected behavior. So I want you to think about this first one. So if you could describe a great bus ride for your students, what would that look like? I want you to think about it for a couple of minutes, maybe seconds. If you could describe a great bus ride for your students, what would that look like? This was just about what would be a good bus ride for your students. What would you describe it as?
Well, I think it's both the students and me. They get on the bus and they find their seat promptly. They would sit seat to seat, back to back. They would use indoor voices, and they'd be the only ones that would get up to their bus stops when it was time to go home.
Okay. So kids being able to feel comfortable, happy on the bus is kind of what I'm hearing, and safe. It's kind of what I've heard so far. Yeah.
Kids in their seat and no arguing,
That's just pause on that thought. That sounds great. Someone? Okay, so we kind of have the picture. Hold that picture in your mind. That's what we're going for. So what would it take for you to make both happen on your bus?
miracle.
Yes.
Well, I'm a cover driver, and so every day my route might be different. So you can really tell who's actually worked with their students and who hasn't worked with their students. And the two things I have found this year is the kids that don't wait for the crossing and they cross, which terrifies me, because I've had several run right in front of vehicles. And the other ones, like yesterday, I held up traffic for a number of minutes because the kids could not find places to sit down. And so I think the drivers working with the students, because you never know who's going to sub for each other or we cover each other's routes or something, that would be good. It comes from our teaching of the kids, so that would make it happen for us. If we had the time, because sometimes we just really don't have the time to go through the teaching. And I think that's where we fall short, is because we don't have time. It's very, very busy.
Right, and that's really true. So when you do have that, like the time, like when they're loading at the school or something like that, those are those golden moments when you wait for the kids to get on the bus and all the rest to get there. That's your time to kind of do any kind of little minutes of or snippets of teaching that you can. And teachers say this all the time. You're not very different from teachers in the way they say it. So it's kind of like front loading. We got to front load, and we've got to really teach that until they get it. And then once they do, it's going to be better for them and for you as a bus driver on the bus. So I want you to think about, like, what problems do you face regularly? I don't know what the problem is. What's the kind of problem? Talking?
Yes, loud talking,
So
excitement.
loud. So loud, excited talking.
Yes.
Okay, and the pattern is?
It's emotions, I guess.
And what's the pattern? Is there a pattern to it?
The pattern, I think,
Every
would
week, every
be
day?
that they're separated and then they come back together. That's all they really want to do is talk about their day.
Okay. So the pattern is they're friends and they want to connect.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
What's concerning is the loud, is the
The
volume.
excitement level of their,
Is the
because they're
volume.
kids.
They want to be excited, but it's
Yes.
not loud, right? So it's loud's the
Yes.
issue, and the time is both,
PM.
is PM.
Yeah.
All right, who else has?
To add to what she says, what makes it a problem is they all come back together, and then the ones sitting in the front of the bus are running to talk to the ones in the back of the bus. So they're turning around and leaning over the seats and yelling at the
Hey,
friends in the back of the
Rhonda,
bus.
did you hear? Yeah.
Because they don't want to wait to talk to those people that are 7 or 8 seats away.
Okay, all right, another one. Most regular, typical ones you have. Standing while the bus is moving.
Yes.
Okay. And so do they stand the whole way, or they just pop up and stand, or stand to yell, or?
They change seats while you're there.
Okay, so this one, okay, who else has staying seated as one of their top 3 issues? Staying seated. Okay. Staying seated and facing forward.
I have such a problem with one of my schools. I spend more time looking in the mirror than I spend looking up where I'm going.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it's very
that's
dangerous,
concerning.
and I've tried to explain to them. And then the kids look at you and they go, I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you get them to quiet down in the classroom and stay quiet? How's that?
Well,
That goes back to what you said with respect.
it's about teaching it, and it's about teaching it. And teachers, I mean, I'll just give you a quick example. You know, with 600 kids in an assembly, and I don't have this big booming voice and no mic. So we had to practice this. So I used a attention-getting signal that, you know, they could see my lips move, but they could see this, all 680 kids. So in a cafeteria. So we practiced it, and it was annoying, and it took up some time. But you just have to do it. It's just, you know, for you, it's critical, it's safety. For me, it was like we needed to have something efficient so we could have a presentation, or the orchestra was going to play for us, or something was going to happen. So I would say, may I have your attention? The first 3 rows probably heard me, but everybody could see this. And then they would get quiet and they couldn't hear me. Or I'd say, we're going to try it again. That's probably about a 3, and we've done it 5 before. Let's try it again. Go back and talk. They were talking, I said, may I have your attention? It would be like, snap. We had to practice at it, and they got really good. So there are times you have to, you know, you have to figure out what's going to work for you and do that. And I know you don't have, I mean, I didn't have a day to practice with my kids. It was like, you know, a minute or 2. That's all we really had to kind of do something like that. And I know you don't, you know, I didn't have all those kids in my class, but it was a lot of kids, just like you have a lot of kids. I know the context is different, you're moving. But the few minutes that you can take to practice with your kids on anything is really going to have big payoffs. So let's move forward. So this, to kind of validate again what you're telling us, is that in a survey that happened from Ranger Spring at the University of Oregon, 300 bus drivers, this is the problems as far as frequency. Moving out of seat, 68%. So you're validated with that. Noise and rowdiness, 64%. Rude or disrespectful, 43%. Matching up. And then fighting or hitting, 39%. So it's quantified. You're not crazy. It does happen. And we do know it. We do need to kind of figure out how to kind of do the best we can, knowing that this is the context that you have every day. So the challenges, every school does face, you know, a lot of these challenges. You're not alone. Unsafe behavior, disrespect to students and adults, and not acting in a responsible manner. So we can meet these challenges, and actually you have met the challenges. In 2010, 11, at the beginning of the year, you had over 281 bus referrals. And then by the end of that year, it went down to 112 after we started doing PBIS on the bus. And that's with the schools teaching the lessons, and with using the positive reinforcements for the behavior, not just passing them out like candy, like, hey, you all have smiles on your face today, everybody gets a bus buck. It's not how you should be using them. We're going to talk about that next week more. And then the correction system, how you kind of do that. Because the teachers were teaching the lessons, and you were working with that too. So that's a 26% decrease, and then a 43% decrease even the next year. And then look where we are, 2012 and 13. So really nice. That's a really nice trend. So how many people would like to go back and have this year? Not me. But you want at least that and have it continuing to go down. Now the 13-14 school year data is almost mirrors this exactly alike. The reason we didn't put it up there that there were 2 schools who didn't put their data in correct, or into the right source, and so we don't have that, you know, perfectly the way we wanted it. I mean, as far as like reporting. So, but it really almost completely mirrors what the 12-13 year was. So we do have data. It's not like we're making it up. It's like what really happened. So why the reduction? Is that the clear expectations, what we expect of kids was really clear. We started that in 2010-11, and you got to be clear about, here's what it looks like to wait for the bus, here's what it's like to get on the bus, here's what it looks like to ride the bus, here's what it looks like to exit the bus. All those different expectations were taught at all the schools in all the buses. And the teachers are still teaching those lessons today. They've already taught them this school year, and based on the data, you know, Katie's kind of one too that will be kind of monitoring that and finding out, well, we're having kind of a rise here. We might need to go back to the schools and have them reteach something. And we also know when kind of difficult times in the year are. Like, you know, I don't have to tell you, the week before spring break is an ugly week. And we all go, oh my gosh. Or, you know, the day of Halloween or before. There's all kinds of ones that we sit down and commiserate over Valentine's Day. And we just know they're coming. So those are days too that we can maybe even ask teachers to pre-correct and maybe teach the lesson again before that day. That would be awesome. That might be something we think about doing. And again, Katie's going to be the person that we can talk to about that. So what the drivers say about this is that after doing it for several years, this is what you said after the first year and a half, treat each child as an individual, create relationships. I cannot emphasize this more. I just can't. It's so powerful. Teachers too. You know, you just have to develop a relationship with your kids, particularly with the ones who drive you crazy. Particularly with those kids. You might be the only, besides your teacher, the only positive adult that might be in their life. Who knows? It's really powerful. And then use your bus stop strategically and often. Be fair. Be consistent. So important messages. This is so powerful to know. This is the same way. Teachers and you set the environment and the culture of your bus. But I do want you to think about prevention. If you know Katie is your biggest challenge on the bus every day, I'm going to think anything I can to do to try to prevent her behavior. I know she's going to get on, she's going to try to do this, so I'm going to think some ways that I can try to interrupt or to prevent that behavior. And you need to use the same language all the time with the kids, as they do in the schools, to shape, yes, to shape and encourage the behavior that we all really want from our kids. So using that language. So what we've learned about behavior, it is learned. So I want you to think about, like, what problems do you face regularly? I don't know what the problem is. What's the kind of problem? Talking?
Yes, loud
Okay,
talking,
so loud.
excitement.
Okay. So loud, excited talking.
Yes.
Okay, and the pattern is?
It's emotions, I guess.
And what's the pattern? Is there a pattern to it?
The pattern, I think,
Every
would
week, every
be
day?
that they're separated and then they come back together. That's all they really want to do is talk about their day.
Okay. So the pattern is they're friends and they want to connect.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
What's concerning is the loud, is the
The
volume.
excitement level of their,
Is the
because they're
volume.
kids.
They want to be excited, but
Yes.
it's not loud, right? So it's loud's the
Yes.
issue and the time is both.
PM.
Is PM.
Yeah.
All right, who else has?
To add to what she says, what makes it a problem is they all come back together, and then the ones sitting in the front of the bus are running to talk to the ones in the back of the bus. So they're turning around and leaning over the seats and yelling at the
Hey,
friends in the back of the
Rhonda,
bus.
did you hear? Yeah.
Because they don't want to wait to talk to those people that are 7 or 8 seats away.
Okay, all right, another one. Most regular, typical ones you have. Standing while the bus is moving.
Yes.
Okay. And so do they stand the whole way, or they just pop up and stand, or stand to yell, or something?
They change seats while you're there.
Okay, so this one, okay, who else has staying seated as one of their top 3 issues? Staying seated. Okay. Staying seated and facing forward.
I have such a problem with one of my schools. I spend more time looking in the mirror than I spend looking up where I'm going.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it's very
that's
dangerous,
concerning.
and I've tried to explain to them. And then the kids look at you and they go, "I'm listening."
Yeah. Okay, another one? Yeah, you're right.
How do you get them
Okay.
to quiet down in the classroom and stay quiet? How's that?
Well,
That goes back to what you said with respect.
it's about teaching it, and it's about teaching it. And teachers, I mean, I'll just give you a quick example. You know, with 600 kids in an assembly, and I don't have this big booming voice and no mic. So we had to practice this. So I used a attention-getting signal that, you know, they could see my lips move, but they could see this, all 680 kids. so in a cafeteria. So we practiced it, and it was annoying, and it took up some time. But you just have to do it. It's just, you know, for you, it's critical, it's safety. For me, it was like, we needed to have something efficient so we could have a presentation, or the orchestra was gonna play for us, or something was gonna happen. So I would say, may I have your attention? The first 3 rows probably heard me, but everybody could see this. And then they would get quiet and they couldn't hear me. Or I'd say, we're gonna try it again. I would give, that's probably about a 3, and we've done it 5 before. Let's try it again. Go back and talk. They would talk and I'd say, may I have your attention? It would be like, now. We had to practice at it, and they got really good. So there are times you have to, you know, you have to figure out what's gonna work for you and do that. And I know you don't have, I mean, I didn't have a day to practice with my kids. It was like, you know, a minute or 2. That's all we really had to kind of do something like that. And I know you don't, you know, I didn't have all those kids in my class, but it was a lot of kids, just like you have a lot of kids. I know the context is different, you're moving. But the few minutes that you can take to practice with your kids on anything is really gonna have big payoffs. So let's move forward. So this is to kind of validate again what you're telling us, is that in a survey that happened from Ranger Spring at the University of Oregon, out of 300 bus drivers, this is the problems as far as frequency. Moving out of seat, 68%. So you validated with that. Noise and rowdiness, 64%. Rude or disrespectful, 43%. Matching up. And then fighting or hitting, 39%. So it's quantified. You're not crazy. It does happen. And we do know it. We do need to kind of figure out how to kind of do the best we can, knowing that this is the context that you have every day. So the challenges, every school does face, you know, all these challenges. You're not alone. Unsafe behavior, disrespect to students and adults, and not acting in a responsible manner. So we can meet these challenges, and actually you have met the challenges. In 2010, 11, at the beginning of the year, you had over 281 bus referrals. And then by the end of that year, it went down to 112 after we started doing PBIS on the bus. And that's with the schools teaching the lessons, and with using the positive reinforcements for the behavior, not just passing them out like candy, like, hey, you all have smiles on your face today, everybody gets a bus buck. It's not how you should be using them. We're going to talk about that next week more. And then the correction system, how you kind of do that. Because the teachers were teaching the lessons, and you were working with that too. So that's a 26% decrease, and then a 43% decrease even the next year. And then look where we are, 2012 and 13. So really nice. That's a really nice trend. So how many people would like to go back and have this year? Not me. But you want to use that and have it continuing to go down. Now the 13-14 school year data is almost mirrors this exactly alike. The reason we didn't put up there that there were 2 schools who didn't put their data in correct, or into the right source, and so we don't have that, you know, perfectly the way we wanted it. I mean, as far as like reporting. So, but it really almost completely mirrors what the 12-13 year was. So we do have data. It's not like we're making it up. It's like what really happened. So why the reduction? Is that the clear expectations, what we expect of kids was really clear. We started that in 2010-11, and you got to be clear about, here's what it looks like to wait for the bus, here's what it's like to get on the bus, here's what it looks like to ride the bus, here's what it looks like to exit the bus. All those different expectations were taught at all the schools, in all the buses. And the teachers are still teaching those lessons today. They've already taught them this school year, and based on the data, you know, Katie's kind of 1-2 that will be kind of monitoring that and finding out, well, we're having kind of a rise here. We might need to go back to the schools and have them reteach something. And we also know when kind of difficult times in the year are. Like, you know, I don't have to tell you, the week before spring break is an ugly week. And we all go, oh my gosh. Or, you know, the day of Halloween or before, there's all kinds of ones that we sit down and commiserate over Valentine's Day. And we just know they're coming. So those are days too that we can maybe even ask teachers to pre-correct and maybe teach the lesson again before that day. That would be awesome. That might be something we think about doing. And again, Katie's going to be the person that we can talk to about that. So what the drivers say about this is that after doing it for several years, this is what you said after the first year and a half, treat each child as an individual, create relationships. I cannot emphasize this more. I just can't. It's so powerful. Teachers too. You know, once you just have to develop a relationship with your kids, particularly with the ones who drive you crazy. Particularly with those kids. You might be the only, besides your teacher, the only positive adult that might be in their life. Who knows? It's really powerful. And then use your bus bucks strategically and often. Be fair. Be consistent. So important messages. This is so powerful to know. This is the same way. Teachers and you set the environment and the culture of your bus. But I do want you to think about prevention. If you know Katie is your biggest challenge on the bus every day, I want to take anything I can to do to try to prevent her behavior. I know she's going to get on, she's going to try to do this, so I'm going to think some ways that I can try to interrupt or to prevent that behavior. And you need to use the same language all the time with the kids, as they do in the schools. To shape, yes, to shape and encourage the behavior that we all really want from our kids. So using that language. So what we've learned about behavior, it is learned. But it is really about a lot of attention, I would imagine. That's what I put it into. And then the tough part about this, and this is the one that really is hard to kind of, I guess, grasp, and then it's almost depressing, is for every year a behavior, like maybe I have a really big attention-getting behavior that it's always worked for me. For every year that that's in place, it takes at least 1 month of hard work for that behavior to have a significant change. But the nagging doesn't get you anywhere. So ask them to think and ask them to tell you what they know. But this is the tough part. So that means if you're really having trouble with the students, you need to let the school know. And see if you can kind of work together on this and say, I need help with the teacher be teaching this, and I'm going to reteach it. If we both do it together, I think we can get that. 80% of the time, children comply with the rules. They do what we expect them to do. And that's really great, 80% of the time. However, they're recognized for compliance, for doing that, less than 2% of the time. And we have to change that. Because we want more. The more we get recognized for something that you're doing and being compliant about, the more you're going to do it. Who hates to hear that you're doing a good job, right?
And one of those, and this is directly related personally with me as a parent, one of those is the get tough practices. Let's just be tougher. Let's just be tougher. The other is relying on false assumptions, thinking that this is just a bad group of kids. This is just a tough stop. These are just bad kids. Okay? And when we talk about the get tough solutions, it's clamping down harder, reviewing the rules without teaching them, without modeling them, without practicing them, making the consequences worse for the kids, establishing a bottom line, an ultimatum, if you will. And the predictability about that is that the kid's going to cross the line. You tell me I can't do that, absolutely can't, bottom line, makes me want to do it.
Draw that line in the sand and then step over.
Yeah. So false assumptions about students are that they're inherently bad. They'll learn more appropriate behavior through increased use of those get tough practices. Or just saying, you know what, today was awful, it'll be better tomorrow, magically. And the science of behavior has taught us, and this is a cute next slide, that kids aren't born with bad behavior. I mean, this little dude doesn't want to be typecast into a role, right? Behavior is learned. They're taught from the time they're born, the language they hear, the reinforcements they hear. That's how they learn behavior. And the good thing about that, well, the hard thing for us as teachers and you as drivers is that you don't really have a lot of control. You don't have any control over what they've learned, right? But the good part is that with reteaching and redirecting, they can learn differently. We know that students do not learn when given only punishments without any reteaching.
And it's really important to know that we're not talking about, kids, it's not like say, hey, kids are gonna have a natural consequence. That's gonna happen, not naturally. But if the reteaching doesn't happen, it doesn't make a difference. It does not make a difference. So just punishing, scolding, giving them a detention, that does not. Reteaching is what really helps to do that replace. You want to replace the behavior by teaching them what you want.
And it doesn't mean that they don't get consequences. Think of it as like a timeout. You put your child in timeout, just that doesn't correct the behavior. You have to go and you have to talk to the child and say, why did you have a timeout? What are you going to do differently? Engage them in that kind of experience. Otherwise, it's just, they're going to be going to timeout all the time. One of those consequences might be, just get this kid off the bus. Just get him off the bus and my life will be so much easiasier. That's what this slide is about, right? These are new slides to me, but Pam has seen them for years, so sometimes I might get the metaphor off a little bit, I don't know. She doesn't like that slide though.
I think it looks like we're being a child, and I don't like it.
Sometimes you like it.
I know, so you gotta laugh a little
What
bit.
we do, what we fantasize, two different.
Yeah, right. Okay, so students will engage in behavior due to their environment. If you think about, before we go into this, no, that's okay. If you think about the way you behave in different environments, right now you're all very well behaved, right? You go out on a Saturday night, you behave differently. You go to church on Sunday, you behave differently. So because of the environment that you're in, you will tend to act accordingly, right? And then, go ahead, yeah, we can move on. So, and Pam, you might have to help me with this one because it's kind of a stretch for me. But, so a man walks up to an elevator with a lion, okay? And he tells the people, don't be alarmed, he's completely harmless. Okay, that looks like a crazy elevator to me. Well, he's completely harmless until something startles him and what's about to happen. Okay, so kids may have had a great day, right? And they're coming on the bus and have no intention of acting out. And then they get on the bus with their friend, kind of like you said, right? They get on the bus with their friends and it just all goes to, you know what. So kids will behave in a way that their environment allows them to behave.
Right, and I think it's also, you guys know that kids get on the bus in the morning after a fight with their mom at breakfast. They get on the bus after school, and something just happened that was really disappointing, maybe in their classroom, or they just got in a fight with their friend in the bus line or something. We receive those kids in classes, you receive them on the buses. And so it's being that connector when they first walk in the door, when they're angry or sad or something, going, hey, what's up today? It's great to see you, but are you okay? Just sometimes asking those kind of things helps kind of take the air out of it. And you know that, a lot of you. But it's paying attention to our kids and building that relationship so they always know you care. When they know you care, you're trying to build a relationship. And sometimes you can ask them in the worst of situations, today, could you do this just for me? I know you're having a tough day, and you can't play that card more than about 2, maybe 3 times a year. So don't use that as your go-to.
But it's nice to have it if you build that relationship with the student.
If you don't have a relationship, then it won't work.
And let's be honest, it's not just about the frame of mind that the kids walk onto the bus with. We, even as teachers, as principals, we come with our experiences as well, and we have bad days. And so really kind of checking your mind frame before each round is important as well. Because like the slides showed, kids will behave in a way that they're allowed to behave. And students do learn better ways of behaving by being taught directly and receiving positive and corrective feedback. So what we're going to have you do is kind of talk with a neighbor, so make sure, or 3 people, however you want to work it out, but make sure you have someone to share with. And you want to, good, thanks. So with your neighbor, we want you to share a positive strategy that you've tried this year so far that's worked to improve behavior on your bus. Okay? So that's what I want you to talk about first, and then we're going to share out a few of those strategies. And this is a time where we can really learn from each other. We're not going to make an exhaustive list or anything, but just kind of touch base with your the people surrounding you about a strategy that's worked.
And then we're going to just kind of point to a couple of people and ask you to share. Okay, so everybody needs to be ready to share. If you're not going to raise your hand, we're going to point to some people to share.
Take your hands all day.
So someone will be our attention signal. May I
Someone
have your
said
attention?
as an experiment, we should have, that way you guys just got a taste of what it's like to be on the bus.
You know what?
So what did we do wrong? We did not establish an attention gain signal, our bad. So this is the signal. So even though you can't hear me, may have your attention. So I'm sure you have a way of getting their attention too. They can't.
Oh, turn around.
Like a bus driver. Gotta make sure you use all the fingers, not just the middle.
We're at a disadvantage, we don't have a big ear. We can't see.
That's your bus friends.
Hey, you know that when you do that, you take your hand off the steering wheel. And you're trying to drive a bus and hold your hand up.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm
Okay.
suggesting you have a way to do that you do it.
Let's, before we get into the things that don't work, let's talk about what you guys shared with your partners about strategies you've used, positive strategies that you've used that have worked with your kids. Go ahead.
I was told a while back that you cannot have whistles on the bus.
Okay, no whistles on the bus.
I have a whistle on the bus. And I got them at the beginning, first of the year, I said, when I blow this whistle, that means you have to shut up. I mean, you have to be dead silent, because it's an emergency. I don't use it, I haven't used it yet. But I do have it, and I did tell them that. But what I remembered of it is, I remember the PE teacher, when they blew the whistle, you shut up and you got blown. So we're getting down to what, discipline and respect? They don't have the respect that is necessary for what we have to do for them. Simple as that. If they did, when you said quiet down or you went like this, once upon a time there was, what was this, quiet down? Signal?
So you don't use the whistle, so what do you use?
I tried this, I
Okay,
tried the PA.
so does that work?
Yeah, it does,
Okay,
if
good
you're
for you.
yelling, if you're like this, yeah.
So that's a good strategy to use the PA and use some of the signal to go with it. Because you need a nonverbal to go with it, and you do.
PA with this hand and we're like.
If you know what you're talking about, the PA is just paying attention, but you're not looking at what you're doing.
I was gonna say, so you can't do it while you're driving, obviously. I get it. You can do it at stop sign, you do it when you stop, you do it when you can't. Different context. So another positive strategy that works for you.
If you act like a drill sergeant, they're not gonna respect you, they're gonna rebel.
No, they don't.
Every day of the day.
So what is a strategy that's worked?
Work for you.
For me, I would clap just like they do in the classroom. If I can't at that point, partying, then I'll have the first student, the first couple seats, they could hear me better without using the intercom, so I'll ask them to do it. It quiets the whole bus down.
Nice. Okay, thanks.
I tried to do something like her for my first 3 days. I'm like relatively new, by the way, but my first 3 days I had a noise issue, and I asked the kids what they do in classroom, and they gave me the peace sign thing. I was like, what do you guys do to like quiet down, like just simmer it down? And they're like, we don't have one. So I was like, guys, why don't we just go like this if I need you guys to calm down? And then if I can't do it, I'll tell my leader, who's to my right. I was like, just can you put the rock on symbol on, please? And she'll just go up, and everyone will calm down. So I don't really have a noise problem.
So using students as positive examples and help,
Nice.
having nonverbal signals, what else?
It helps if you make it fun. I use it kind of like a Simon Says thing, like I'll get on my mic and not everybody can hear me, and I'll say, if you can hear my voice, put your hands on your head. If you can hear my voice, put your hands on your nose. And then it starts off the kids who can hear me, but then all the other kids are just like, oh crap, what's going on? Oh. And then they start following suit. If you make it interesting for them as opposed to just, okay.
You know, a lot of teachers use that strategy. You're gonna, instead of saying, we're gonna teach you and you're gonna learn math, we're gonna play a game. And by the way, you're gonna learn. Okay. Oh, just call me. What did you share?
Well, I use my intercom, you know, and I guess I'm an anomaly. I don't have kids crossing the street to get on my bus and stuff like that, and I just, you know, I'm real patient. I'm an official, and there are things that work, and just explain to them, look, I can't punish anybody here, but we should sure have a long conversation with your principal, and they can deal with you. I don't want to do that. So, you know, if you don't want to do that, we both don't want to do that, so just knock it off.
Well, that's like relationship building. Yeah.
I use the intercom, but it's hard to have them completely silent. So I just say, can you take it down a couple of notches? I'm trying to concentrate on driving. That usually works. When it's a particular day, like a Friday afternoon or like the day before spring break, I'll do it a couple of times. If it doesn't quiet it down, I'll pull over when I can secure the bus. And I'm an avid reader, I'll pull out my book, I'll just start reading it. And the kids up front go, what's he doing? He's reading. And it starts getting quieter and quieter until the bus is completely silent. And without saying a word, I just say bye. It works.
It does work, that works, but we don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
We're pushed right into the wall.
It takes a minute.
Yeah. Well, and it's something you don't do all the time, right?
No.
It's maybe something you do once in a while. Okay. One more.
Just to change direction a little bit, on building the relationships. I'm a sub most of the time, so I'm on a different route a lot. And one of the things I like to do to establish control of the bus, even before we even leave, is when the kids get on in the afternoon's the biggest problem, right? So when the kids get on the bus, I am typically not in the driver's seat. I'm typically in the bus, like somewhere in the back, because that's where all the kids run to. And then when they see a driver back there, they're like, what are you doing? And I say, I just want to talk to you guys. How was your day? How did school go? And then once they like sit down and they start talking to me, and this is, granted, this is on a bus that doesn't have 80 kids. Right now my bus has 80 kids, so I can't really do that. But that establishes a relationship that is not strictly authoritarian. So I see them as a person, they see me as a person, and then when it is time to say, okay guys, it's time to quiet down, it's time to sit down, they've already seen me not as that, you know, hardcore person, and so they tend to listen to me, and, you know, very seldom do I have anyone that says, well, I'm gonna be defiant. So it's just,
It's funny you say, I'm sorry, I have to say this. It's funny you say that because I rode the bus. I lived in Biggs Landing growing up. I'm sure you guys were. And I remember my bus driver, and I didn't ride the bus only just when I was little in elementary school, but I remember my bus driver, Patty, did that. She stood in the back and talked to each one of us. I remember her name was Patty. I don't think she's here. But that's something, that's interesting, that just dawned on me, but, okay, so we kind of talked a little bit about things that have been counterproductive as well, like being just strictly the drill sergeant.
What else doesn't work?
Yeah, what else
Doesn't, that you've tried does not work.
Screaming, yelling.
Bus bugs.
Bus bugs.
There are ways they don't work.
There are ways
like
that,
them, but they don't have any payoff at the end.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about those next week.
you're right, right, they can be effectively used and ineffectively used. They can be effective ways of preventing and reinforcing behavior or not.
I found that you can't be friends with them. You've got to hold their attention. You know, I've been driving for a lot of years, and I started out wanting to be their friend, and it just doesn't work.
You can be friendly,
Friendly.
and you can have a
Friendly, but
relationship.
not friend.
But by the same token, you can't be cool, you know, like,
Frosty.
you know, start doing some rap or hip
Oh, I
hop or
see
something.
Oh,
That would be.
What has
Especially with my middle schoolers, I showed them, I've taught them that if they respect me, my safety issues, and what I expect of my bus, I respect them as human beings also.
That's extremely.
And that has shown a big improvement with all of my kids. I've gotten letters of them, from them, 8th graders, saying, you know, different things about how it just makes their day getting on the bus with the bus driver smiling and this and that. So it really has just to, I expect this from you. If you guys can respect me, I respect you
You
as
know
other
what,
human
though, I'm
beings.
telling you, I bet you already gave them respect. Because it starts with you. So if you give respect, I had a bus driver years and years ago who said, they're not giving me respect. And I said, here's what I know, if you don't give it, you're not gonna get it. So you probably were given it, and defining that and say, I'm gonna respect you, and I need you to respect me.
I've done that with my kids, my
And here's what
boys,
it
you
looks
do
and
the same
sounds like.
thing, you know.
Cool, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Another
that's,
idea to share?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this kind of loud, Dan. But Jim and Lisa and several other drivers have had the luxury of having the same route every year. And
That's
they work
exactly what it is. I have to get the same route all the
every
time,
year.
otherwise.
And you build a respect between them and you because you get them every single year. But then when we bid and we can't get the same route, then we're starting all over again.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's like, teachers who, like I was a second grade teacher, and I moved to the 3rd grade with the same group. That's nice.
Sure.
And then, but you basically, you have to start over, but
It's a lot of work.
it's a journey. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work for teachers, it's a lot of work for you, the same group you have to go through.
But I do other people's high schools and things like that too, and as long as I have the attitude towards them as, you respect me, I respect you. That's how I run my bus.
Yeah.
I've never had problems with it.
And don't ever tell them what you're doing. I'm giving it to you already, and I need it back.
I really hate to stop this
I know,
because
good.
I don't think you guys probably get a chance very often to come together and share what works and what doesn't work, and I hate to do that, but we do need to go. Move on. So this is you.
So we're gonna take you to, so anyway, you've heard of EBS, EBIS, PBIS, and you're going, what the heck is that? So years ago, it started out at EBS, Effective Behavior Support. You might also hear it as EBIS. And so it's really, this is the definition of it if you want it. So when you hear it called PBIS, EBS, EBIS, it's all the same thing. Tiger Tualatin wanted to stick with the original name, which was EBS, and then kind of most of the rest of the state of the world is using PBIS. But Tiger Tualatin is actually an outstanding district and highly recognized for their PBIS, for their EBIS work. And you guys, your name is out there as bus drivers who use this. Other districts want to know about how you've done this. All the systems that you built 3 years ago have been shared. The other districts call and say, hey, how can we do this? This is great that they've defined what it looks like on the bus and all the rest. But this is what the definition is. It's really, it's not a canned program. It's not a book you read. It's not any of that. It's some systems that are built. And basically, it has some individual strategies, but it's about systems. And we really kind of connected the schools to the buses to the schools in this particular setting. So it's important because we want to achieve better social skills with kids, and you know they need them, and better learning outcomes, academically and socially. While at the same time, it's about preventing behavior, not just responding to it. I'm just going to ask you right now, would you rather respond to behavior or prevent it? Prevent. I'm all about that. I don't like cleaning up the mess. So these are the systems. So this is what you built 3 years ago. You built an expectation system. You define the behavior you want to see from kids at the bus stop, you know, as they get on the bus, as they enter the bus, as they ride the bus, as they exit the bus. You defined all that. This is what it should look like. And then there are lessons that went with that, so how to clearly teach that to kids, and those are taught by teachers in the school, and you have access to them as well. And then there's the reinforcement system. This is where we let kids know, this is where we notice, and this is one of my most go-to words, this is where you notice when kids are doing this, the behavior we want, and you let them know. That's what the bus bugs are about, is noticing and letting them know. Now, and you can tell them, you don't always have to give a bus bug for every single thing you see going well, but we're going to talk more about that next week, but that's really what that's about. So if you teach me, tell me what you expect of me, and you teach me what to do, then I learn what to do. It's like we have, I think that's the video that we have coming up later. If we just told kids what not to do all the time, it's so confusing. Then they go, okay, I know what not to do, but what exactly do I do? And then I keep learning, oh, you want me to do that now? Oh, you know, you're just off balance all the time. So we want to acknowledge, clearly teach, let them know where they're doing it, and then we need to correct. That means which involves reteaching the desired behavior. So if they're not doing what you want, we need to reteach it. Now, if we've already taught it a lot too, we can ask kids, so what's the rule about taking your seat? They should be able to tell you. If they can't, you simply go, okay, what's the rule about finding your seat? Katie? I don't know. I said, well, the rule about finding your seat is you take your first seat when you get on the bus and slide over. Okay, so what's the rule about finding your seat?
Take the first seat and slide over.
Okay, you got it. Great. Thank you. And show me what it looks like. Boom. That's it. We're done. That's why we're teaching. Yeah, and then I may have to do it 3 more days in a row because she doesn't have it or whatever next week. But just having kids say, don't do this, slide over, nag, nag, nag. Say, what's the rule about? What's the rule about? Ask them to do the thinking. So that's a part of the correction system. And then sometimes it ends up in some natural consequences. It might end up being a bus referral. It might end up moving to the front of the bus, or you move the seat for them, or whatever it might be. Natural consequences. Now this is kind of this is called the triangle, PBIS triangle, and we kind of think of it like, 80% of the time when we teach kids in school or teach kids anything, and this goes for adults as well, the first time if we do a really great job teaching, we get about 80–85% that really, okay, I got it. I've learned this, I understand it right away, you don't have to reteach me. Then there's about 10–15% that they don't quite have it. And so you're going to have to go back and reteach that in maybe a different way or multiple times until they kind of, okay, I think I have it. So, and that happens in schools all the time. And so the kids who run your bus are those same kids. So there are kids who need to be retaught, need to hear it, need to practice it, and then finally they can't get it. And then there's that 3–5% at the very top of the red triangle up there. And those are kids who are at high risk. These are our kids who have lots of maybe learning issues, behavior problems, or maybe on even behavior plans, or have some other thing that's really impacting their life. And they're high risk. And so they take a little extra support to go ahead and be able to achieve some of the things we want them to do. So this, you're always trying to pull some of these kids down into here. Some of these kids, I mean, if you have some traumatic brain injury, or you've got some other learning disabilities, or those kind of things, those things don't go away. You have to kind of work with the school on how can I get Pam just to settle down in my bus. We're gonna have to put a plan together, we'll try to do those things on your own. So anyway, that's really what, these are the kids, and then there is a triangle, of course, on your bus. You know those kids that are in that yellow zone that you think, how many times do I have to reteach those kids? So you can, I know you can give me names. So, but it looks on your bus, and you know what? It's kind of weird to say, but there's a triangle for adults in a school. There's a triangle sitting here. It's true. And so you have to think, where am I? I think I'm everybody else, and I'm going to pull myself down. All right. So white positive behavior support on the bus. Okay, because we want to establish some safe environments for our bus and increase that social confidence of kids knowing what to do social skills wise, how to treat each other, you know, how to have a conversation that's not rude and loud and all the other things. And in schools, sometimes we have to help kids have a, you know, a safe and lunch with somebody else. They don't have some of those social skills. So improve efficiency of systems of behavior support, and more than anything else, prevent behavior. You just want to prevent it. So what does it look like in the schools? Because I want you to know what's going on in the schools. They're doing this in the school. They teach the first days of school. So if they've got different days, like the first day of school, they'll teach 1 or 2 lessons. One might be, here's how you access lunch. We're going to go in the lunchroom. We're going to do a whole lesson on how you go to lunch, how you get your food, where you sit, how you go to recess. Here's a lesson on how we access the bathrooms. It's like what you should do. It's not a laundry list of don't do all these things. It's like what you should do. If you came in really early, you saw a picture of my 2 little grandsons slide. And and I've worked with our son and daughter-in-law. They're just great parents, of course. But they have a little 2-year-old, and so I knew that they were moving in the right direction when Nolan went over to the 2-year-old, to the stove, the gas stove, and started putting his hands on the gas knobs. Instead of going crazy and going, no, don't stop. I mean, because they said, Nolan, where should your hands be? They asked him to think, and he put them right on the towel rack. So what had they taught him? They had taught him not to touch. They taught him to put his hands on the towel rack. So that's what they taught us. So teach them what you want them to do. Don't teach them what you don't want. Okay, so then, so it's going to give you maximum time to drive the bus. Really using these things more than it had certainly before. And continued opportunities for students to learn and practice those expectations. They're not going to be great at them right away, and you know that. The school's already been going a little bit now. So for those kids who need some more practice, maybe we should provide that. High rates of really some positive reinforcement and certainly supervising the kids all the time. When you walk to the back of the bus, or the other way to do a positive adult-to-student interactions, having it exceed the negative, we want the 5 to 1. So if you have to get after it, kind of like we teach or scold a student, it's really about, I need to have some times where I'm really noticing the positives that's going on in the student that way. Okay, I think we're ready for a break. So we're going to take a 2-minute break back to you guys. Recognize the signal response. Thank you very much. So we're going to jump back in here and move us. So the main message is that this is the same that classrooms and schools want too. We want a positive environment that's preventative and predictable and effective. And I'm going to tell you about the predictable piece. Kids do best. I think we all do best. Kids do best when they have a predictable environment. I want you to think about, there's always some really tragic stories we hear about in the news or sometimes in our everyday lives. We hear about the lives of kids who come home to very unpredictable and horrible situations at times. Am I going to have food tonight? Is mom and dad going to be there or not? I mean, there's some really sad stories out there. And so that really are kind of like the epitome of something that's not predictable. So classrooms, when I walk into my third grade classroom, I should be able to predict that my teacher's gonna be there, that she's gonna greet me at the door, she's happy to see me. I put my backpack away in the same place, I go to my same desk, I have TV. A predictable environment is really the best. And so the more predictable you can be, and warm and welcoming for your kids, the happier they're gonna be, the more they're going to be compliant for you and all the rest. And I'm sure that is the case on your bus. But, just imagine that a student who gets on a bus that, maybe it's their first time and they've transferred from another district or something, and they're going, whoa, what is this gonna be, So it's important that you really set that tone. Be predictable, and you always try to prevent behavior. So if it also gives us with PBIS, it's a safer place to be, healthier, more caring. And then we're able to teach, therefore kids can learn. So that's why we do the front loading of teaching them what we expect. I'd rather spend the first full 2 weeks of school teaching kids procedures, routines. Here's how we travel to the library. Here's how we transition between math and reading without having a big hullabaloo in the classroom. And we practice and practice that until we get really good at that. Because until we are, we're not going to be able to learn. Because I won't be able to get your attention, and we won't be able to get anything done. So, and I know you have like the most crazy way that you have to do that so fast. But that's why the more front loading and teaching, and reteaching that you can do to get to that point, the better. And yes, you're going to have your outliers. You're going to have those kids that are your projects. There are 5 kids on the bus or whatever that you're going to have to work more specifically with on reteaching those pieces to get them to there and say, listen, I try to provide a really predictable place so you can have a safe, comfortable, and happy ride on the bus. Here's what I need from you. So you can't ask that unless you've built some trust and a little bit of a relationship with the kid. And you can ask some pretty good stuff if you do that. So, and it gives you a continuum, a way to kind of like provide a continuum of behavior support for students. Now this particularly comes from schools. So within the school, there's a way to go from the student who needs hardly just the basic reteaching and all that kind of stuff, all the way up to the student who really has lots of difficulty learning and processing and all the rest. So it's really important too that you continue the conversation with your school principal, because sometimes I hear things from bus drivers like, a sad story like they get new students and they know this student has issues and they just push them on my bus at the end of the day. I don't know about it. We don't want those stories. So it's really important that, and I'm sure Judy's working with the school on that, if students who have, it might be new students or students who have issues, you should be included into really how to best work with that student, because some students that really have some boundary issues and all the rest. So hopefully that connection's happening. If it's not, you need to be talking with the schools.
I've tried that before, but some of the schools, maybe all of them, they have a privacy issue.
It is true. It is really true, but they can. It's called right to privacy. It's a federal law. And so you can't say, what are the issues? Well, they can't say he has mental health issues, but they can tell you some strategies that work best with that kid. That's what they can do. They can say, this student really does well when you give one direction and the next, then show them how to do it. I don't know. But ask for a strategy. If you're having struggling with the student, you need to let the school know or talk to Judy about the process for that. And they will let you know. I mean, they're responsive. They can say, well, this student, a strategy that doesn't work well is this. The one that does work well is this. You can't do that. Okay? All right. And then it gets to the achievement. So we should pass this one. So Judy, can we get you to help pass this one out? I mean, just have one copy. Okay, we're going to do a bus route activity, because you're talking, and just to kind of focus on, like we were talking about a little earlier, what's going on. So I want you to rate 3 bus runs. So identify 3 recent bus route experiences you've had. for each bus run, like there's 1, 2, and 3, I want you to write down the grade level, once you get this, and or group, and I want you to rate it from 1 to 5. Okay, and so the quality rating. So my kindergarten run in the morning, I'll rate that. And I'd say it's a 5. And I want you to tell me why, if it falls into the 4 or 5 category, why is it, what makes it a 4 or 5 category? If you rated your middle school, it was a 2. Why was it a 2 route? I mean, activity. Why was it a 2 run? And so put some factors down, like it was overcrowded, it was whatever it was. So I want you to rate that. I'm going to have you do some sharing out, and I'm just going to call on people to share. So I do want you to fill it out. So this is the sheet we're filling out right here. Does everybody have something right? Pretty well lined out? Okay. So I'm going to call on a couple of people, and each one people come in. We haven't heard from a little bit. So let's see. Right there? Yeah. Tell us your first run, tell what the group, the rating, and then factors that.
First run is Walton High School, and they're always a 4 or 5, and that's because they are just as engaging. I say good morning, they'll say good morning, thank you. Everyone says thank you, goodbye. We, have a good weekend, you too. And in the morning they're asleep, but that's the afternoon. But every one of them is respectful. So I would say it's almost a 4 or 5. Middle school is always about a 2, and I engage them equally as the high school kids. But there's 2 sisters, and they come from, I hear what they come from in their home life. And they sit in the front by assignment, but they are as bad as any 2 kids I've ever had, and I've tried everything, including principal, sitting with them, before school, just for 4 of us. But they've even said, we deal with this all day long with them at school. They don't care about detentions because they have it every day. The mom we call home, doesn't do anything. So I really have my hands tied. But and then the elementary school are always a 4 or 5. Parents are always at the stops. No behavior problems, and also very respectful and stuff. So. It's really only the middle school, and I have no idea how to handle those 2 girls. And
so it's just down to the top of the triangle, just a couple of feet.
Yeah.
So other than that.
But they'll affect the whole bus because it's like poison in the well. Engage with other kids and, so.
You've got them up front, so you've done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, and then over here, the gentleman at the, not the back row, but the next row on the end. Yes.
I have no complaint on my high school, They're great, quiet, respectful. You don't have to teach them, lots of things, because probably they're more mature.
Okay. So you give them like a 4 or a 5?
I give them 4.
Okay, all right. So what's another group you drive?
I drove the middle school sentence. They got on the bus, they know what I expected.
Okay.
And, they great.
Okay.
And even grade school, I do Templeton, I give them 3 and 4, because first, mostly in the afternoon, they are kind of noisy, waiting to,
Okay.
to load the bus, and by the time we're ready to go, they all sit down, they're having fun.
So the noise level is acceptable?
Pretty good,
All right. Okay, and then over here, let's see, that's the lady. Me? Yeah. You're a lady.
Well, I only do elementary and middle school, and in the mornings, they're both exceptionally well, they give them 4.
And what does it look like, what are the factors? I mean, like.
They're all quiet, they're all sit down, they're all quiet when it comes to the railroad crossing. The only problem I had was overcrowding in my middle school, but we fixed that, and they gave me a bigger bus. Other than that.
So it's also, middle school is also rated 4 or 5?
4, yeah, my middle and our elementary and are rated 4.
Is anybody want to switch with her?
She has my girl from last year.
Oh.
Yeah.
I should have not not stepped into that.
There you go.
And I stepped on her bus last week when she was on vacation,
Uh-huh.
and she speaks the truth. The middle school were very engaging, very helpful, because I was brand new to the route that day. And so one young man directed me right through the whole thing, and they were all, thank you. And I came back and I said, that's the day we were overcrowded, and so she got a bigger bus that afternoon.
Oh, boy. And then, but you want me to do the whole thing?
My big kids.
Yeah, wait, no, we're going to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So on the backside, these are just some things that, you know, in some ways, it's kind of a duh, you know, but these are some really good things to consider. Like, you know, is that, did you begin, I mean, it's kind of like you have to, even if you're having a bad day, a teacher comes to school kind of half sick or not feeling good, you gotta put on that happy face, you gotta do the best you can that day. And so it's like, are you doing the positive, sincere greeting to the students? Did you positively acknowledge students who were demonstrating safe, respectful, responsible? Did you correct students privately, quickly, professionally, and respectfully? So it shouldn't sound like it did in 1952, you know, knock it off back then. It really shouldn't, you know, and so even if kids are being the most rude, you don't give it back. You give back the best of yourself and to do those pieces. Did you choose one expectation or one thing that you expect? Did you choose one to review? And say, I want us to go over this today, we've been a little rocky on this one, and talk to them about that, or praise the whole bus on one? And did you follow up with students needing it? Like if you had trouble with me yesterday, even though you think you kind of worked it out, check in with me and say, how are you doing this morning? Say, I'm doing better. And then overall, was the bus ride safe, respectful, responsible? And make a list of what worked in your bus route, and make a list of any changes that you would make for yourself to go ahead and improve upon. And this is for you. This goes nowhere. This is just to kind of help you focus on the great stuff that you do already, and any little tweaks or changes that you can consider as you move forward with those parts. So, we're going to see if we can kind of. So we've done that. And then what are some changes you would make to improve the lower scoring runs? And just be thinking about that. And it's just having the time to talk. And I don't know if like I know because you don't really have the opportunity to get together like this, you're busy driving and doing your jobs. You know, here's just an idea, Judy. I don't know if there's a way to maybe keep a poster someplace where people can put down, here's some positive things I've been doing that's been working on my bus. We could just share those pieces. I mean, because sometimes someone puts a little twist on something that really worked for them, besides the basics that you're also sharing today. That'd be nice. So, moving on here. So there's 5 kind of big principles for PBIS, whether it's in a school, on a bus, anywhere in the school, and they really kind of start out with these. Is that you have very clear expectations, whether, like I said, it's on the playground, it's in the cafeteria, it's in the classroom. And then you teach those experiences. And as I said with my grandson, you teach them what you want to do, not what you don't want them to do. Because there'll be a laundry list from here to the end of time about what you shouldn't do. And then also, when you have to be, when I help schools and bus drivers, put together their list of expectations, you just put down the basic things that would really, the most important things that you expect. I mean, we're not putting down, wouldn't it be nice if they also said thank you every other second, or bowed and curtsied when they got on the bus? That would be wonderful. That'd be nice, but we would come up with a very long list for that. So just the basic, most important things, and you guys have that in your bus expectations. And then when teachers teach these, you give examples of what it should look like and demonstrate and show that, and then you talk about the non-examples. Here's what it should look like, and here's what it should not look like. Just simply, to make sure there's real clarity around that. And then reinforcing the expectations means we acknowledge them by telling them exactly what we noticed that they were doing. We taught them what to do, and when we see it, you need to be all over noticing it. So, and that's what we talked about for like the bus bucks. So, and you need to be specific about that. We'll get there real quickly. but the next time we're together, we're really focusing on that a lot. So you want to minimize attention for the minor inappropriate behaviors. Make such a big deal about it, do it privately, and move that along. Avoid power struggles. And some kids are just masterful at that. I kind of look at it, and I'll probably repeat this in a couple of weeks, but it's kind of like fishing. They just cast it out there and don't take the hook. Because some of them are really good about casting that out to see if they can pull you in, if they're good at that. So, and then have clear consequences for some of the unacceptable behavior that are like reasonable, like, well, change of seats, you're welcome to do this if you can't do that. So that's clear. So this is what you came up with. Now, again, people who were here 3 years ago, you built this, raise your hand. You built this with your principals. Now, I won't work with school districts who the principals aren't going to be involved in building these systems, because you own it together. And if you just built it on your own and tossed it to the principals going to say, whoa, what's this about? If the principals just tossed it to you and said, just do it, it's not, you don't own it. But you own this together, you built it. So it has, you have this, and I don't know if there's, Judy, are they still inside the bus? Okay, good. So you can use this.
We can get replacements. I'll check with Dan and see what buses that don't have them, and we'll get replacements.
Yeah, because they end up being kind of great teaching tools. Like, like what's the rule about? Oh, here's the rule right here. The rule is da 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 da. So it's a teaching tool. So these have been built. There they are, right there. So it's very specific, and that's done. And the teachers have the lessons to go with that, and you guys even have the access to the lessons too. So like for, I think you've already done evacuation.
Process.
Okay, the
We
process.
use the whole of the Montgomery.
That's, you do your bus evacuation. I would be super smart about throwing some of this in there, say respect, responsible. You know what that looks like. So if this would happen, this is what evacuation we do. But every day we do these other things. So the expectations sound like in hybrid schools, be safe, respectful, responsible. In all the schools, I think there's one, I think it was my school, be safe, be kind, be responsible. I think Kempton and Durham both have that. Same difference. So, okay, teach them. And then don't assume, this is the part I said earlier, don't assume kids know. And it's sad that we can't, but you just can't assume kids know. So you need to teach them. And everybody's ensuring that that's being taught, and they're teaching at the beginning of the school year, and typically they teach right after the big holiday break, and either prior to spring break or right after. I like it prior to spring break, because I'd rather prevent that awful week we have before spring break. Let's go back one little section, okay, right here. So, and then the teams, the schools each have a PBIS team, and they're looking at the data, behavior data monthly, including the bus behavior. And so if they're seeing something that's kind of popping up, like in their playground, whatever, they'll go back and reteach that particular area. Or if there's a really big crisis coming up that they see on the buses, they'll say, here's what we're seeing in the data. So it's based on what the data is telling them to. So reinforcing expectations. If I'm being reinforced, that means you are noticing my behavior. And the word I do use is that if you're noticing effort. You're not noticing that I've got a cute backpack on and all the rest. It doesn't mean you can't say, hey, cool backpack today. But you don't get somebody a bus buck for that. You're giving the kids bus bucks for effort. Not over the top and beyond and, above and beyond kind of effort. Everyday effort. For a kid who really struggles with something, you need to be noticing it, and that's the effort that they've made. So statements can sound like this. These were generalizations that don't help teach the rules. So I should flip this slide because I'm telling you what not to do, and that's not good. But these statements are too general. Good job. And then kids, if you give a bus bike to a kid and say good job, they walk away going, what does that mean? I don't even know. You're awesome. What does that mean? Wow, super. They just aren't that effective. They kind of really discount it. So clearly state what you notice the student doing. I noticed you walked up the steps today. Thank you. And particularly for someone who takes 2 steps at a time, you know, whatever, that's a good one to notice. I saw you helping the new student find her bus stop. Thank you. And just saying, when you request anything of a student, if you get in the habit of saying thank you and you really mean it, it goes a long way. Thank you for picking up the trash. It was very responsible. Thank you for supporting John today when he was upset. Your quiet voice today really helped me concentrate today while I was driving. Thanks. What if you told that to the whole bus? Even if it was for like between one stop and the next, and that was the best part of the day. Tell them that. So, and then minimize attention for monitoring injuries. Avoid those power struggles. And stay calm when those are starting to happen. Be specific about what you need them to do. Use a neutral, not upset tone. Be aware of our body language that sends all kinds of signals to kids or another adult. Avoid the power struggle. So a couple words that will kind of encourage and reinforce is that, and this is my favorite, I grew up a couple years ago, rather than the kindergarten language like, I'm really happy to see that you're all with your hand in your lap, and, you know, it doesn't have to sound like, you know, a nursery school or something. And it makes me happy, and I'm, you know, it's not about making me happy, it's just about me noticing that you're doing what we asked you to do. So I noticed, I saw, and can I help you? So I noticed, it's just all a fact. And I saw an effort happen. I saw you do this. And can I help you? So if a kid's having an argument or getting on the bus, I can say, can I help? Are you okay? That shows empathy, and you kind of call them out at the same time. Like, I'm paying attention here. I know something's going on. So can I help you? Are you okay? It shows caring and that you're involved. Well, she's blah, 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 you know, okay. So how can you guys work this out? I want you to step out to the, you know, until everybody gets on the bus, so you guys can work it out for a few seconds and get on. I'll have a seat for you when you get on. I'll let them work it out. So stay out of the pouch. And so when kids start to argue, these are my magic words I come up with. So when she starts to argue with me, I say, regardless, nevertheless, and even so. My mom doesn't make me do that. I can't believe you'll do that. You know, well, even so, I still need you to take your seat. Nevertheless, I still need you to be ready to bus.
Works with spouses too.
I'm
going to tell Brandon you
It's just a great non-arguing thing. It's a great non-arguing thing. And so, especially when I think sometimes we kind of get rattled, and sometimes we get upset. Because we can't believe this kid really said that, or really did this. So you just kind of take a deep breath and go, even so, I still need you to, you know, get on the bus quietly. And so they continue to argue, you're not going to be in the argument. Even so, nevertheless, and they won't like that. So have clear consequences for unacceptable behavior. And I'll tell you a couple things, we'll get into this later too, in a couple of weeks, but it's really around the being clear for having kids understand that there are choices here. The consequence should be used as a learning opportunity. And if everyone likes, is there anyone here who doesn't like in your life that you don't want some control? Is there anybody who doesn't like to make choices for yourself? Human beings are like that, and kids are the same way. We need to give our kids some control and choice. So sometimes when kids are struggling with something, so you might, you know, like in a class, you might say, you know, she's struggling, working in math where she's at, and I can say she's talking to other folks and all the rest. I'll say, you know what? You're welcome to stay in your same seat if you can talk quietly with your partner, or I have another seat for you. I'll give you a minute to think about it. Doing, get on the bus, and then I said, you know, she's quiet and said, thank you. Looks like you made a good choice. So she got quiet again. And if she didn't, then the other choice is, I've got another seat for you. But put it back as a choice that they're making. So give kids a choice when they realize what the other choice is. Sometimes they might say, you know, I would like that other seat because she's driving me crazy. So that might be good. So, catching kids showing good behavior improves behavior by 80%. So when you notice and tell them that you see they're doing something right and they're on target, we don't have to give them, gold bullion, we don't have to give them stuff, but we do have to let them know. And the bus buck is a reminder, it's a kind of an evidence that we did that. You can say it and you can give the bus buck. We're going to talk a lot about the bus bucks next time. Yes, they can be misused. But it's not, and I'll tell you just a little preview of that. It's what you say is the golden nugget of enforcement. It's not the piece of paper. You know, I shouldn't have to win a car with the bus buck. We'll talk more about that next time. But it's what you say specifically. So we have a quick little bus movie and then a couple slides, we're out of here. Okay? This is something, a couple last things here. This is from Ryan Gano, a child psychologist and teacher from the Teacher and Child. And I use this with everyone, teachers included. I've come to the funny conclusion. I am the decisive element in the classroom.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, please.
Okay, yeah, you can read along. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, bus driver, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, or a child humanized or dehumanized. 2 questions I have for you to think about. What will you do tomorrow that will be noticed by your students as making their time with you even better? And what was your key learning today that can help you to deal more positively with your students? And some of it might just be hearing some of from your other colleagues and what's working for them. And then I want you to give these a try and repeat these back next time. I want you to begin the route with a positive, sincere greeting. I'm sure you're doing that already, but just double check. Get to know all of their names if you don't. I bet you know them all. It's powerful when you do. Positively acknowledge students who are demonstrating what you wanted them to be doing. Correct the students privately, quickly, professionally, respectfully. And then I just want you to have a great year, and sorry we're in just a couple minutes over. But we'll see you next week. Is that right? Yes, on the 16th. On the 16th. She's got a plan for the 16th. So I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. That's